Namaste to all of you. This is the second part of my lecture in which first we are going to discuss types of computer. There are many types of computers are available in the market and the types depend on your requirement. The first type of computer is microcomputers. Second is mini computers, mainframe computers, classes by functions, where we have servers and workstations. Finally, supercomputers. Microcomputers are the most common type of computers which we use today, either at our workplace or in our schools, labs, some of the labs. Few sophisticated labs will need higher version of computers. Like all the desktop computers, all type of desktop computers, laptop computers, notebooks, tablet PCs, PDAs, they are in the category of microcomputers. But whenever we say computers, always in our mind that the desktop and laptop is only computers, but it's not true. They are one just category. The second type of computers are mini computers. Mini computers is a class of multi-user computers that lies in the middle range of the computing spectrum between the large multi-user systems and the smallest single-user systems. These microcomputers, also known as personal computers. Mini computer, in this figure you can see, it's a type of mini computer in 90s. A Honeywell Bull DPS-7 mainframe. Mainframe computers, they were created to distinguish the traditional large institutional computer intended to service multiple users from the smaller single-user machines. Another type of computers are by function, and I'm taking one function, for example, like server. This is a kind of server you have seen in your lab. Server rack, lot of wires are connected. Some of the work you cannot perform using your desktop and laptop. We need to use servers, and especially for networking, internet, servers are very, very important. Whenever you write the program which we need to solve the complex problem, that cases also server can help. Whenever you want to store the lot of data, the servers are very, very useful. The last one, supercomputers. Of course, they are really super. Super in sense because they can perform complex computation. They have huge storage, huge speed, because for complex calculation we need to have a lot of iterations, maybe iterations in million and billion time. In that case, our desktop and laptop may not sufficient. So we need to have supercomputers, and especially for the practical applications like weather forecasting. For weather forecasting, we need to simulate a lot of data, real world data, multimedia data. They need a lot of space and computation complexity. For that, we need to use supercomputers. I have one example for you. This example is from NASA Columbia supercomputer. It's very old, roughly around 10 years back. In NASA lab, they have this kind of supercomputers. Now the supercomputers are also available in India, Indian universities, and Indian government has sponsored and they have developed a supercomputer. The name is Param Savak. Param Savak is very, very popular in Indian institutes, and many institutes, they have this Param Savak. Like multiprocessing we require because sometimes one work is not possible by one CPU. Complex process is there. So what we do, we divide into parts, and then that particular part is given to different type of CPUs. That one we call as multiprocessing. So some computers may divide their work between one or more separate CPUs, and that is called as multiprocessing configuration. Let us see 21st century computing. Current computers are very smart. Whenever we say smart, means they have very good speed, they have huge storage and memory, increased networking and speed in internet, widespread use of CDs, lot of cell phones you can see, plus one additional feature, they may have wireless property. And whenever you say speed, I showed you one table during my last presentation. The speed and storage, if you compare today computer and 10 years back computer, the speed is roughly around 1,000 times faster than older one. And like if you see your laptop, whatever you are using, that laptop is equivalent to a supercomputer of a teach. So you can imagine, in a teach, whatever the speed and storage and memory one supercomputer has, currently you have in your laptop. So you can see the gap, it's a huge gap. This is 21st century computing. There was one video here, Computer System History Museum, which I'm not going to show you. Now, what is embedded system? Whenever we call computer system, there is a cousin sister, embedded system. Embedded system is also a computer with a specialized input-output device that is very, very efficient to perform a single function. So sometimes a student like kindergarten schools and all, they ask the question, what is computer? I answer them. Whenever you are pressing the button, that is computer. Whenever you are pressing a button, that is computer. Means your remote is also a type of computer. Because in your remote, if you break, I hope you don't break your remote, there will be one IC there, microprocessor. That microprocessor is a type of small computer, and that is run by our programming lines. Like our air con, whenever you press the button, that is a type of computer. But your fan, mechanical fan, when you are using the switches here, on the switch, and after that by using your speed, you are increasing. That is not supercomputer. Sorry, that is not the computer. That is not embedded system. But the ceiling fans nowadays, you can control their speed using your remote. That is a type of computer, and that type of computer is categorized in the form of embedded system because they are designed to perform a specialized input output. Your car key is also a small computer that works based on battery. So it's everywhere. Embedded systems are everywhere, like your digital camera, like your mobile phone, like your air con. Your mobile phone is now not a embedded system. It's a good computer system, you can say, whatever the smartphones we have, because they are consisting billions of transistors. They are very, very fast. Almost they are performing all operations what one computer performed in 90s, 80s. Your washing machine is a kind of computer which we call embedded system. They are everywhere. Like your mobile phones. I have taken these pictures. They are very, very old. You can see these. I don't know you have used these phones or not, but they are the series of Nokia. The first one you can see 3310. So once upon a time, Nokia was very famous. That one, like in market, 40% market was captured by Nokia. But during that time, there was a transition. The phones were shifting to Android operating system, and Nokia was somehow not ready to switch. I don't know what was the reason. And nowadays, Nokia is not in market. Therefore, sometimes we crack the joke. If you cannot change yourself with respect to time, you become Nokia phone. So what was the market? You can see in 2008, just 12 years back, Nokia was having 40% share in the market, Samsung 14%, Motorola 14%, and rest are like this. And these handphones powerhouses add up to approximately 80% of all mobile produced and sold in the world. So these were very, very famous companies. But now you see the scenario has been changed. Nokia share is very less. Unfortunately, I don't have the data how many percent Nokia has in the market. But currently, a lot of Chinese phones are also very, very popular in the market. Redmi and all, because they have a lot of features. Of course, Apple phones are very good, but they are very expensive. And that's the reason their market share is lesser than other phones. MP3 players. You have seen so many MP3 players. Type of MP3 players, they are also embedded devices. And if I take the MP3 players, the manufacturer, quite interesting, Panasonic to Philips, they are also embedded devices. And for your information, out of all computer system, around 70% computers are embedded devices. Embedded devices. If I take the example of your household, you can see, maybe you have one laptop, maybe you have one desktop, but you have many embedded systems like your television, your fridge, your camera, your music system, your speakers, sometimes your fan, your household video cameras, CCTVs, almost. That's a big number. Therefore, the market of embedded devices are dominating. They are also a type of computers. This example I have given to you, like it's a, you can see aircraft, full authority digital engine and control here. To develop a product, you can see how many types of engineers require. The first portion you can see, to develop this we need mechanical engineer and metallurgical engineer. Here you can see a lot of wires, we need electrical engineer. You can see a lot of microprocessor here, screens and all, we need electronics engineer. And to write the program, we need computer engineer here. And the whole body, we need metallurgical engineering people. So what I want to say, to develop one product, we need different kind of engineers. They join together, they sit together, and then they develop the product. And for computer engineers, wherever electronic devices are there, they need computer engineers, they need programmer. Therefore, we say computer engineers, they can work in any company, either it is civil engineers, civil company, mechanical company, oil and gas company, or maybe it's a medical companies, because you can see that a lot of medical devices, they are electronic devices. So for them also, they need a programmer, because you have to write the program to operate the system. That's the reason the computer engineers' jobs are always, especially during Corona time, computer engineers' jobs are on peak. Next point comes like language. As we know that the computers cannot understand the language of human. Like now you can see Google typing example, you can see how it works. For example, you speak and then your sound is converted into script. How it works? My speech signal go to the computer. That speech signal is basically catched by our audio system in our laptop or desktop. And then that lines, what I speak, is converted into voltage and current form. And that voltage and current form finally converted into 1 and 0 form, because computer understand only 1 and 0. Therefore, we need higher level languages for better human understanding. The best example you can see like C language. C language, I take example, if you want to add two numbers, integer x and y, and finally you get answer integer z. So integer x, integer y, integer z, you write it. But that finally compiler convert your whole line into form of 1 and 0. And that 1 and 0 also further converted into form of voltage and current, because this is finally it's an electronic device. Electronic device, you have plug-in, the power is there, battery is there, therefore they run based on current and voltage. So this 1 and 0 finally converted into form of voltage. And that one is a kind of range basically, maybe from 2 volt to 5 volt, the value is 1. But again, that is depending on the technology, which technology we use. So computer understand 1 and 0. We write program in higher level languages, and then compiler convert into 1 and 0. And a lot of languages are available in the market. If you start from 60s, thousands of languages were there. Old time Ada, nowadays Python is very famous. You write the program for machine learning and neural network people. Python is very famous. C, MATLAB, C++, like many languages are there. And you have to be expert for 1 or 2 languages. That will solve your problem. The another point comes like internet. Internet, I'm talking to you just because of internet. I'm using Zoom. Zoom is online. It's internet technology. This internet came by 70s basically. During wartime, American army used internet against Russia in Afghanistan, and after using, they throw in the market. But our We know that it is in 90s. Anyway, this slide is the Friendster. It was a kind of earlier version of Facebook. It's not Facebook, but similar function like Facebook. And purposefully, I have taken this old social media platform. So this one was very famous once upon a time. So how internet works? What is internet basically? Internet are a network of networks, joining many government universities, private computers together, providing an infrastructure for the use of email, bulletin boards, file archives, hypertext documents, databases, and other computational resources. Initially, when this internet was in initial stage, the companies, the government, they invested a lot of money for infrastructure. But it was one-time investment. Therefore, in 90s, accessing internet was very rare. Very few universities in India, they were having the internet facilities. But nowadays, you can see it's like Wi-Fi and all. Everywhere you can see the internet. Now, after 4G, Geo, you can see. Because one-time investment was there, that time has been gone. Now, the cost is less. The largest network of networks in the world, and this internet works some kind of protocol, and that protocol which is very famous, TCP/IP. We will study these things later. This left-hand side, you can see it's a co-creator of TCP/IP, Dr. Winton Cerf. One more gentleman. I want to dedicate my slide to him. Claude Shannon. He is known as father of modern information theory. He gave some theory, Claude Shannon expansion in 90s. And still he proposed one theorem, Claude Shannon expansion theorem. And still this Shannon expansion theorem is not proved. So once we see the internet growth, this is up to 10 only. So last 10 years I'm showing here. In 1977, only 111 hosts were on internet. 1981, 213, 83, 562, 90s you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So see this number, 2001, it was between 150 to 175 million hosts. In 2002, it's over a million hosts. 2007, over 5 billion. By 2010, about 80% of the planet will be on the internet. That one was the prediction. When I prepared the slide, I prepared in, I think, 2008. But now you can see huge number. So I have shown another presentation where you can see how many people are there in the internet now. For that, you can see my lecture, Internet of Things, where I have shown a graph that how many devices are connected through internet today. If I take an example here, this one was in 2014. The total number of websites are here, roughly 861023217, and active are only 184156064. Inactive are 676. So you can see roughly around 75% websites are not active. So you can have a question then, if they are inactive, what they are doing? They are playing a big role here. Here is the real game. All these inactive websites are pointing to the active website. They are created purposefully. Why they have created purposefully? Because if you do a Google, which phone is a good phone? So what we do, we just check first 10 pages. On first page, we only see, because they are coming on first pages, because many inactive sites are pointing to these active sites. So these inactive sites are purposefully created to boost the active sites so that they can come on the first page, and then they can earn a lot of money. So that is the reason. For that, we will have some another discussion. So this is the visualization of a portion of the route on the internet. You can see how dense it is, how dense. You can imagine the connections. But one more interesting fact I want to tell you here. This network is very dense, but our brain network is more denser than this. So therefore, sometimes I talk to doctors and I say that internet has a huge network and we have to maintain a lot of things. Then I showed this diagram. They say that, okay, this is nothing. If I compare our brain, how they are connected, they are very, very simple. But even you can see, to apply the mathematics and all here, it's a huge graph. So it's a portion of root of the internet. I have another video for history of internet. I'll show you some other time. So what is the future of the computer? The fact is, we cannot expect the future. Only astrologists can tell what is the future of whole world. So same like some kind of prediction I'm doing here. The future computer, if you argue that next generation of computer will be nearly invisible, meaning that they will blend in with everyday objects. Like you can see nowadays, Internet of Things are very, very popular. Everything will be connected. Like one cow and another cow will be talking each other through internet. Flexible ink like circuitry will be printed onto a plastic or sprayed onto various other substrates such as clothes. Maybe you are wearing jeans and coat. That coats are basically, it's a kind of computer. Some of the things you can see, it's already in the market. You can take the example of your smartwatch. Who believes before 5 to 10 years that one smartwatch can monitor your blood pressure? They can monitor how many footsteps you are traveling. They can monitor your speed. Today it's okay. You can pay 2,000 rupees and you can buy, you become happy. But imagine before 5 years, before 10 years, no one could believe this. This kind of watch is also possible. Whenever you are not in dense sleep, there is an alarm. But before that, alarm you have to put. I have to wake up 5 a.m. morning. You put alarm and then you are getting alarm at 5 a.m. But nowadays, your smartwatches, they are going to monitor your sleeping habits. And whenever this smartwatch feel you are not in deep sleep, you are just in light sleep and you are in dream, immediately there is an alarm. That's also a kind of like, so the wearable computer, something like this. And that's the reason in the first slide I gave the example of Sophia. The Sophia was a robot answering everything. A human is totally replaceable by a computer, including their brains and all. So this is a kind of wearable computers we are expecting in future. This is Sophia. And when I prepared this slide, that time Sophia was not in the market. This one was developed in 2006 and 7, but now you can see the Sophia is traveling all over the world, and Saudi Arabia is offering citizenship to Sophia. So what is the technological difference? Technological difference, you can see it's a biological cell. Like the computers, like whatever the technology we are using currently, all are basically, it's based on binary logic, and where we are using this CMOS and all technology. So later the expectation is they can have the biological cell, or they can have quantum. Even a lot of, like if you go to the Intel website, IBM website, the quantum computers are already in the market. So the point is, theoretically, the values what we store in 0 and 1 form, we are not going to store further in quantum computers in the form of 0 and 1. We are going to store in the between 0 and 1. And you can imagine between 0 and 1, infinite storage is possible. So theoretically it's okay, but still physicist people are working hard how to develop ICs and all for this. So the summary of my talk: first, the computer was started 18th century, starting from mechanical to electrical, and then after that a lot of software and all came. Different kind of languages we have seen, Fortran and C, different kind of programming things and future developments. So these are the sources which I have used. Thank you. If you have any question, whenever you watch this video, you can type questions there in YouTube. I will try to answer the questions from there. Have a nice evening. Enjoy past, present, and future of the computer. Thank you.